Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Podio Commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo. Today, we are going to be talking about a movie that I think is more important to the legacy of Henry Cavill's career in many, many, many ways than anything else that he's ever done. Because when you think of Henry Cavill, you think obviously Superman, you think Geralt of Rivia, you think James Bond. Because a lot of people have tried to say that he is going to be the next James Bond. I said this multiple times, that he is simply too old to play James Bond. He is 41. He looks fantastic, all right? He's not old by any metric. But what would you say if you knew that this movie, the character he plays, is based on a real-life person who apparently is the real-life inspiration for James Bond, as written by Ian Fleming? There is a level of meta there that is absolutely hysterical to me, and that is one of the reasons why I really, really, really enjoyed the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This is a movie that it came out and it went pretty quick, unfortunately, a few months ago, 2024, and I just got around to watching it this week. And I was very pleasantly surprised with it. I've been a Guy Ritchie fan since the late 90s when I first saw Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels on VHS. And I remember watching the utter hell out of that and Snatch. You know, the Sherlock Holmes movies are great. And I think Guy Ritchie is just a very versatile director. And he knows how to get in, get out, and get a movie done, especially if Jason Statham is involved. But this is one that I think kind of like deviates a little bit away from his normal style. It's a very straightforward movie, and I think that was done on purpose, especially considering that it's from the hidden files or secret files of Winston Churchill, because it is based on a true story. And I thought that was a little bit of BS at first. I thought that was a little bit of BS at first, because it's actually based on a book called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare: How Churchill's Secret Warriors Set Europe Ablaze and Gave Birth to the Modern Black Ops. This book came out in 2015, and that is a mouthful of a title, all things considered, because it almost seems like unrealistic, right? Like, these are from Churchill's secret files, and that he actually like gave birth to the concept of Black Ops, right? Of all these privateers, if you will, mercenaries, if you will, people, the Bonds, the MI6s, the secret agents working outside the bounds of the law in order to get it done in any way possible. And this movie very much is a Nazi slaughtering good time. Because remember, you can't spell slaughter without laughter. And this movie very much is just about killing Nazis. Sometimes so much so that it gets to be a little bit too cartoonish. Sometimes it does feel like it is being like an adaptation of a video game rather than being like based on a real story. But again, I think that's kind of the concept of this movie. It's a small film. As weird as that is to say, it's a very, very, very small film, but it does have pedigree behind it. You have Jerry Bruckheimer producing the movie. Now, if you're like me, if you're an 80s kid, a 90s kid who came into their own, their adolescence in the early 2000s, if you saw the Jerry Bruckheimer production logo, right, that fast-moving highway with a tree that gets struck by lightning, you knew you were in for a good time. You knew you were in for a good time. Jerry Bruckheimer meant quality. Now, I don't know how that's necessarily, like, it's still pretty good to this day. I can't really knock it. Bruckheimer has got a lot going for him. But still, when you watch a movie like this and you see that name in front of it, you know what you're going to get. And so to kind of go back to this, because I do want to go into a little bit of the production history, there's really not much to go on. Even the Wikipedia entry for this is just like remarkably small. But really what happened is Paramount Pictures had acquired the rights to Damien Lewis's book, that The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare: How Churchill's Secret Warriors Set Europe Ablaze and Gave Birth to Modern Black Ops. That's a mouthful, like I said. They got the rights to the book back in 2015, but it took another 6 years for Guy Ritchie to sign on to direct the project. It was written by Arash Amel, and Jerry Bruckheimer, as I said, produced it. Arash Amel is a guy that I've never really heard of before. His work, as it shows us, is he did a film in 2012 called Erased. He did a movie called Rise, Outside the Wire. Outside the Wire is a Netflix movie with Anthony Mackie. He did A Private War, is a 2018 biographical war drama starring Rosamund Pike. And apparently he is writing the remake of the 1984 American science fiction romantic drama classic. Well, I don't know if you want to call it classic, Starman. So he is he's writing Starman. Okay, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. But this guy's been around for a while. I can't necessarily say that I've seen any of his work. Oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I need to go back. He didn't write Outside the Wire. He just produced it. So this kind of feels like it's his first movie to ever really be picked up. He did actually have a script optioned by Universal back in 2013 called Soldiers of the Sun, which was meant to be a new franchise starring Vin Diesel. That never went anywhere. And so good for him. Good for him to be able to work on this movie. He also did Hidden Strike. My bad. Hidden Strike was the Jackie Chan, John Cena movie that came out in 2023. It's apparently not good, but it was directed by Scott Waugh, who did Act of Valor, Need for Speed, and of course Expendables 4, which we will get to those movies at some point in time during the course of this particular show. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely like some, I want to say, like, you have a pedigree director, a pedigree producer, and you've got a guy who's been brought in to like basically say, okay, we're going to make this a very kind of small affair. And they did. They actually shot the movie for only $60 million. They began filming it in February 13th, 2023 in Antalya, Turkey, and they wrapped production 2 months later in April of 2023. It was a very quick production. The movie obviously stars Henry Cavill, stars Alan Ritchson of, Reacher fame, Henry Golding, Snake Eyes, Alex Pettyfer, who was in a few things like, what was that one? I Am Number 4, so the main one I remember him from, and Cary Elwes, of course, As You Wish, the Dread Pirate Roberts Wesley, the Stable Boy. I love it, Cary Elwes, right? Anything he's in. You guys ever see the movie The Crush? Any Crush fans from 93? That's a weird one. We're going to have to talk about that. That's a really weird movie. But of course, Princess Bride is his best movie. Although, what was it? Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning wasn't his best. It was still fun to see him in the movie, though. I've always enjoyed watching Cary Elwes, obviously. So the movie, the day it began filming, was actually picked up by Lionsgate as getting U.S. distribution rights to the film, and they were going to give it a worldwide release in 2024. And then select international distribution rights had been sold to Amazon Prime Video. So even though the movie itself came out, it only did 25.8 million, I think, worldwide. It just came out at like a bad time, which is why it was released on home video so quickly, or at least PVOD so quickly. But it definitely, probably made it up in regards to home video, streaming rights and everything else. What you guys got to remember is that it's movies these days, and this is kind of what I say when I talk about newer films, is that they're not necessarily meant to make money in the box office. Like, they know that they're not going to make the money back in the box office, but what they might do is be able to push enough in order to be able to get it to, do well in PVOD, right? To do well on digital, to do well in rentals. And that's where they're going to make their money. And that's something that Universal has been heavily doing for quite some time. They've been doing that. This one, though, I forget which, this is Lionsgate. So Lionsgate, I think, does a bit of the same thing. And Lionsgate knows how to make this stuff work. This movie is definitely not one that I feel is going to find a home in theaters. It didn't, but I do feel it's one that's going to find its home on home video. Because the movie, like I said, it's simple. It's just Henry Cavill. So think about this. It's Superman, or Geralt of Rivia, with Reacher, killing Nazis, right? Never mind. You've got, who is it? Eiza González is in the movie as well as Marjorie Stewart. Marjorie Stewart. And okay, here's the thing, guys. I'm kind of ahead of myself here. This movie is based on true events, which means that these people, Henry Cavill plays Gus March Phillips, real person, the real inspiration for James Bond. You actually have Freddie Fox in the movie as Ian Fleming. Yes, that Ian Fleming, the writer of the James Bond. Ian Fleming, who he was legitimately involved in this stuff back in the day. This movie is definitely not historical in the way that it's done. It's very over the top. But what's crazy, and I'm going to kind of get ahead of myself here, is like you've got Henry Cavill and Eiza González, and those are your male lead, your female lead. There is almost no scene. They're only in a couple scenes together. They have very little dialogue, very little interaction, no sexual chemistry, no romance whatsoever. At the very end of the movie, right? At the very end of the movie, when they're kind of doing that whole oh, here's who these people really were, and here's the awards they got and things like that. They say that Marjorie Stewart married Gus March Phillips. And you're like, oh, wow, they got married in real life, but they had no time together in the movie at all to establish any kind of romantic entanglement. In fact, I mean, don't get me wrong, Eiza González was fantastic in the movie as Marjorie. I mean, her working with Babs Olusen Mokun, I butchered that name. My God, I'm so sorry. But she was great for what she was. She was kind of like the ringer. She was the femme fatale. She was the one sent in to to very much seduce Heinrich Löhr, played excellently, by the way, by Til Schweiger. Til Schweiger's been around for a long time. I think the first movie I remember seeing him in was SLC Punk from back in the day, and then he was in Inglourious Bastards, and he's very German, very Aryan looking, right? So he's played that role very often. If you've ever seen the Uwe Boll Sci-Fi Channel movie Far Cry, based on the video game, he's the lead in that. It's not actually a terrible movie. It's actually an okay film. You might actually find some enjoyment in Uwe Boll films. I know I do, but I'm also kind of weird like that. But in this case, he's this violent, sociopathic, vicious commander. And he likes to beat women to death. And that's what gets him off. And he's very smart and he's very cunning. And Marjorie Stewart is an actress, and she's a double agent, and she's been taught how to fight and shoot and all those things. And she's very adept at going on in and being the person she needs to be. And here she's playing the role of a gold buyer, and she's or gold seller, and she's looking to open up new lines of smuggling, and that's why she's there, talking to him and whatever, and they're also meant to seduce him and distract him while the team sneaks in and takes out this U-boat, this supply boat for the U-boats, because the U-boats are terrorizing the Atlantic Ocean, making it so American soldiers are not able to enter into the European theater and therefore back up the Brits and lead to Normandy, which, by the way, we're just celebrating the 80th anniversary of right here. And so they've got to get in there in order to, stop Hitler. And this is a Black Ops mission where these guys got to go in and destroy this U-boat. But when they get there, they realize that, oh, wait, it's been reinforced. It's unsinkable. So it then turns into a heist where they've got to then take out the Germans, steal the U-boat or the supply boat, and then basically deposit it in the hands of the Allies, therefore crippling the German U-boat fleet and allowing the Americans to get on in. And that becomes the plan. And it's actually really interesting because you first think, okay, they're going to go in, they're going to blow this boat up. And then no, they got to change plans last minute. And of course, really what this movie does well is it has great character work. Not to say that there's a lot of character development, because there's not. These are big, brawny British men, or in the case of Alan Ritchson, very Swedish. And they are killers, and they are saboteurs. And they are very much that's what they're there to do. And then you've got Babs, who plays Richard Herron, who kind of runs a couple of the clubs on the island where the boat is at that they have to steal. And he is very much a sympathizer, and he's part of the resistance. And he is there to try and navigate everything in order to be able to help them get what they need. And this is where they bring in Campbell Kalu, who is like the prince of the island. He basically runs the pirates. He's like Oxford educated. Him and Henry Cavill have a great rapport. Henry Cavill keeps calling him old boy, and they're talking about lacrosse and everything else. And it's just like this idea, as we see this even in modern days, where you've got like, you've got these in movies, you see this where you'll have like a bad guy, but he is, Ivy League, educated, right? His parents sent him to an Ivy League school like Harvard or Georgetown or Stanford or something, or Oxford or Cambridge or whatever, and then they come over here and they get our education, our top tier Ivy League education, and then take it back home, and then they become bad. This is kind of the same case, but this guy became a pirate. And he offers up his men to help take everything out. And it's a great, like the movie has like a lot of setup, and then they get to the ending of the movie, where again, they're just killing Nazis the whole time. There's a part in the film where, what's his name there? It's, Henry Hayes, not Henry Hayes. It's, I'm looking at my notes here. Jeffrey Appleyard. That's who it is, right? He's the strategist, and he's been captured by the Nazis, and he's being held off the coast of Africa, and they have to go and make a detour to go get him. And they sneak on into the island in the middle of the day, and they've all got silenced weaponry, and like no one can hear it. And they're just like, like video games. It felt like a video game. They're just like rolling on in, steamrolling everyone. Alan Ritchson has got his bow and arrow, and he's killing everyone like he's Rambo. And he's doing it quickly. He's doing it quietly. He also will like get into fights where he'll use his arrows as like, stabbing weapons. He'll stab. I mean, it's brutal when they get into the fight scenes in this movie. It's pretty messed up. But again, they're just like, they're icing everybody. They're just murdering everybody. It feels very much like an over the top Guy Ritchie crime movie or action movie that has some stylings of Tarantino. To be fair, it does. It feels like it has some stylings of Tarantino, but without the witty dialogue. It's very fast paced. And when they get to the end of the movie and they're going to do everything, and you've got like, now you get your A story, you got your B story, right? So the A story is the men are going to steal the boat. And then you've got to have Marjorie, and Marjorie is he has to seduce the commander and keep him busy at a costume party. And what happens is she's singing a song, because she actually is in real life an actress and a singer. She says she's singing in German, and she messes up one word, and she says it in Yiddish and not German. And he's like, she is a Jew, right? Because early on she was like, I am Jewish. She told him, but then she played it off like she was kidding, and he believed her, but she really is Jewish. And so, he's like, oh, that's it. That's the little rat. That's the little snake, and they're like, all right, that's, look, you need to set up what's going to be the finale. You need to set up what's going to be the conflict. What I thought was going to happen again, because this just feels like standard fare, is that she was going to get captured, and Henry Cavill was going to have to go back and rescue her, kill the bad guy, and then get her on the boat. And that was going to be, like the love story of the movie. That doesn't happen, which is why at the ending, like I said before, when it says that they're married, you're like, what's going on here? It's kind of weird. So she gets captured by the bad guy, and he takes her to his like red room of pain, except they get distracted by explosions. So she actually never ends up getting tortured. And what got me kind of laughing about that is when the boat gets away, and, Til Schweiger's like, I'm going to make you pay, because I know you're a spy. I'm going to make you pay for all of this in tenfold. And then she's like, well, I guess that's what's going to happen. And I'm like, wait, that's kind of a weird, like, what does she got? What's her trick up her sleeve? And she pulls out a Derringer from like inside her underwear, or like right inside of her, like her little thigh or whatever. And he sees it. And then she just fires one round, because she's a sharpshooter, fires one shot right into his head, and he just dies. And then here comes, Babs, and he grabs her, and then they steal a boat and make their way back. It all kind of happens a little coincidentally, to be fair. It's a little bit too, like no one dies. Only one dude gets shot in the arm, right? Like the Irish guy gets shot in the arm, and that's really about it. And then at the end, they all get arrested because they all violated, the British Army rule. and they're kept in isolation for 4 weeks until Winston Churchill comes in and basically like frees them and gives them a bunch of food and is just like, you all now work for me. You know, and it's like, okay, so they clearly were establishing this movie as like the beginning of a franchise, right? Of like the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now we're going to go take out the bad guys. And so at that point, they could kind of turn it into maybe even Inglourious Bastards, a little bit deviate, you know, alt history sort of thing. And I think that would have been the most interesting thing for them to do, would have been to do that. But the movie, like I said, probably didn't make enough to warrant a sequel, especially with like Henry Cavill's price tag. But at the same time, I kind of hope that it does, because it would be interesting to see it. Now, the reason why I don't know if they are going to, they would have to, I'll pay. Here's the thing. They would actually have to deviate and do alt history, because this particular Operation Postmaster, happened in January of 1942. And that is when they stole the ship. Okay. And he died real life a few months later on September 12th, 1942, at the age of 34. And what happened was he was killed in action when they ended up getting stuck. They were trying to land a raiding team. They chose the wrong spot. They came under heavy fire. As he was trying to get off the boat and swim ashore, he was shot and killed by the Germans. And so, believe it or not, it was only after Operation Postmaster, which was the one that the movie's based on. That was in January of 1942. A few months later, April 18th, 1942, is when he married Marjorie Stewart. And then only 6 months later, not even that, 4 months later, he was shot and killed and everything. So, I mean, like, that's, you know, like, that's an interesting life, but he is very much, you know, the idea of who James Bond is. That is very much the idea of who he is. So I would love to see more of that. Obviously, you know, it's probably not going to happen. They would need to like spread the movie out, give us a trilogy, have him die at the end. But he died in a way that, like, you know, wasn't a sacrifice. It was a miscalculation. And so they would have to turn that and twist that and alter that into something that'd be more heroic, something that would be more, you know, how do I say it? Like, more affable for audiences. You know what I mean? Like, you would have to do that. And I think Henry Cavill is enough of a big actor. He would also have to have that. But when I think about this movie, you know, really as a whole, it was wildly entertaining, kind of dumb, but wildly entertaining. I sat there throughout the whole movie and just kind of enjoying myself, thinking, yeah, I'll watch this again. I'll absolutely check this out again. This is something that I could see being put on, you know, just for fun one night. This is going to be something that I think a lot of dudes are going to enjoy, because the movie is full on testosterone to the max, right? It's testosterone. It's killing Nazis. It's got Henry Cavill. It's got Alan Ritchson. I mean, you know, if you like, this is going to go to Amazon Prime Video. When this goes to Amazon Prime Video, I'll be very much curious to see what the numbers are, because Reacher is so damn popular. Also, Henry Cavill is now at home with Amazon for the Warhammer series that he's working on, that whole universe that he's working on. So I feel like when that happens, we might see something so popular come out of this that it could end up blowing up. And I feel like this weekend would have been the weekend to do it, because this is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. But it's also entirely possible that they're going to do it around like July 4th. You know, it's a patriotic movie starring a bunch of Brits, but at the same time, Americans will be like, hell yeah, or America, yeah, coming again to save the mother day, yeah. You know, I got to keep the swearing to a minimum because I monetize this podcast, so there's that. But at the end of the day, this is a fine movie. It was a fun, simple movie with a lot of over-the-top characters, some fun moments, and it is watchable again. As always, I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts about this. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What would you like to see more from it? Did you know any of the history of this movie? There's a lot of questions. If you listen to this where you get your podcasts on like Spotify or iTunes, please leave a review. If you're following this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you guys later for another episode of Podio Commentary. Have yourself a great day, everybody. Thank you again, and peace out.